The StreamSets DataOps platform is the world's first single platform for building smart data pipelines across hybrid and multi-cloud architectures. You can build, run, monitor, and manage data pipelines confidently with an end-to-end data integration platform that's built for constant change. Amp up your productivity with easy-to-navigate interface with hundreds of pre-built sources and destinations. Once you're up and running, your smart data pipelines are resilient to data drift, those ongoing and unexpected changes in your data infrastructure and pipelines. Finally, you have one single pane of glass for operating and monitoring all of your data pipelines. Get started today building data pipelines in minutes for free at streamsets.com/tagdata. The first 10 listeners of this podcast that subscribe to StreamSets Professional tier will receive 2 months free after their first month.
Hello, I'm Dr. Beverly Wright, and welcome to Tag Data Talk. With us today, we have Ken Viciana, who is Vice President of Global Data and Analytics Products from TSYS. Thanks for joining us, Ken.
Great. Thanks for having me, Beverly. I'm excited to have a conversation with you today.
Awesome. Well, let's start off with a little background. Tell us, why are you so cool, Viciana Data?
Viciana Data. I do have a hashtag, Viciana
Besides
Data.
having your own hashtag.
We'll give it a little bit of a plug. That's kind of cool, I guess, to some people. But I think it's really about the journey, right? I've been in the data and analytics space for over 20 years. And just thinking about how I've navigated my career and done different aspects within data and analytics, thinking about where I started and kind of where I've gotten, right? It's been really just rounding out my background, starting really with data management and data quality and data governance. Got into BI reporting, and then, one of my stops, I got more into analytics and applications of data and how you could monetize that information, which is really interesting. And after that, I kind of did a stop in cybersecurity, kind of mitigating risk using data, which was really an interesting stop for me. I learned a lot about cyber and, just kind of realized that I really like that offensive kind of data and analytics space, trying to really monetize data and productize it. So it's been an interesting journey, but the overarching theme, it's really been all about, helping companies really leverage data, as a differentiator and drive value from it to really enable business outcomes has been the overarching theme of my career.
Love it. Love it. So you started in data, you moved to BI, you've been in data science, you took a little break in cyber for a minute.
Yep.
Does that mean AI is next?
Perhaps. I mean, I'm involved with that now in my current role with data science. So yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and I'd say, as I've navigated, these moves have been very deliberate. It's been about learning new things and, really rounding out my background and experience.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited about our talk because I can't believe I've never talked about this on Tag Data Talk before. It's so funny.
I was so excited when I got the invite because I'm a big fan of your show. So thank you. Yeah.
Well, today's talk is talking about leading data scientists. So we're looking at the people side, not necessarily the function, although of course that ties into it, but from a people perspective. And right now, this is a very hot topic because, as you know, it's tough to find good data scientists.
It is.
As soon as you find them, they learn some stuff and then they go somewhere else. And it's very slippery. So first of all, can you help us understand, describe a persona? What are they like? What are some of the nuances? And I say they, I really mean I'm one of them. So what is it like when you're dealing with who is a data scientist?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've already touched on that. I've done different aspects of data and analytics. I mean, data science, there's a lot of, innovation. I like to think of it as an R&D kind of think tank, right? What's the art of what's possible with the data, right? Really thinking about how we can insert data science to generate value, right, to our customers. And the challenge is creating that culture of innovation. I think it's a little different from other areas of data and analytics. One of the challenges I have, it's, you always get pulled into production stuff, stuff from customers and sales teams where you have to go do some research or solve a problem. I'm really trying to shield our data science group to really be able to innovate, think freely, and kind of drive the work that we're doing, right? Come up with the ideas. And one of the things that's really worked well is, creating these innovation sessions where we kind of get in a room and throw a bunch of ideas on the whiteboard and no idea is a bad idea, right? We kind of just get everything out, they're in the data, they're in the weeds, they're seeing things that a lot of other people in the company are not seeing, right? And I want to make sure we're bringing those ideas up, and then we kind of challenge them, talk about them, and not everyone sticks, right? And but creating that culture where at the end of the meeting we kind of prioritize and we go off and do the work and have that kind of fail fast mentality, right? Let's get in there and see if this holds together. And I think that the thing that's different about data science is a lot of times it doesn't hold together, right? And you've got to set that culture that's okay, right? Not every idea is going to end up, huge money idea for the company. And that when you see the results, not everything has value in moving forward, but that can be tough for people to swallow, right? If they invest some time in an analysis and they're passionate about it, and then it kind of sits on the shelf and goes nowhere, sometimes that's hard for people to, they didn't see it get over the finish line, right? So it's tough for them to deal with. So that's, as a leader in data science, you have to set that culture that, this is normal. This is kind of how it's supposed to work.
Right.
Right.
So I heard a few different things. That's a great description, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the kind of net of some of the word salad,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll tell you the three terms that I think I pulled out of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned think tank.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned research, R&D, innovation, free thinking, whiteboarding, which is pretty interesting. I've actually told people before that it should be called data science and data arts and sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And that the whiteboard is the most important tool for a data scientist. And people are like, what? That's impossible. But no. So with those things, I sort of boiled it and said, I think you're saying curiosity, cerebral, they're very smart, and they kind of know how to go deep.
Yep.
So if those are the three kind of big picture characteristics where they're focused on innovation, research, they understand, they can go in a room and really think for a long time. And they're not about necessarily constantly running fast. They're okay to take it slower and to really think through things. There must be some challenges in trying to manage, retain, acquire.
Yes.
Like there must be some big challenges working with these smart, curious, always truth-seeking people. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, right now in the market, attrition is a challenge in data science specifically. We've spoken about this a number of times, but you bring in data scientists and the market's just so hot comp-wise, people are jumping around for money. So I think also just the tenure at companies has changed a lot. I think if you go back, 5-10 years, you didn't see people jumping around companies, every year, every few months even, where it's a lot more common now since the pandemic, I think.
We're actually seeing a trend. I work for a company that does recruitment, and we're seeing a trend where the contracting has gotten huge. People are just wanting to stay on somewhere 9 months and look for the next gig.
Yeah.
Instead of working a permanent position.
Yeah, I think the other thing you're seeing is people working multiple jobs at the same time, right? People have a side hustle too, and it's become more normal.
Gotcha. So these curious, smart, deep thinking, innovative people, what are some of the other challenges aside from like the attrition and acquisition of trying to bring them on board?
Yeah.
Just working with them, even like what are some other things?
I mean, I think it's keeping them interested and learning and engaged, right? Because a lot of times in data science, they end up doing, back-end engineering type work that, may not be exactly what they want to do, but it's necessary for the analysis, right? So, trying to keep them focused on that real value add work versus some of the, more back-end engineering. I think that division between IT and data science, a lot of times data science kind of has their own environment and they're administering the environment and managing it. So there's stuff they've got to do there that might not be the most exciting,
glamorous, right. You don't
but
see
it has to be done,
right.
But that can be problematic if they're spending more of their time on those kind of things versus the exciting, sexy data science analyses that they want to do. Right.
Okay. So one thing about them that is nuancy is retention and acquisition. Not that you can acquire people, but but bring them on board. And the other one is just keeping them interested. I actually had, this is an interesting story. I had a Master of Science in Analytics student that was at a major school in the area, a university, and she actually went to HR to complain because her work was too simple.
Yep.
She said,
Wow.
I'm not being challenged, and I thought I was going to be challenged, and I want to do the cool data science. And
Wow.
yeah, and so I thought that was very interesting. So that's kind of what you're saying is that to keep them on the headlines where they're actually seeing, or the front lines where they're seeing like, oh, here's how this is benefiting the business, or this is how it's having an impact. People are listening. They're doing stuff based on my analysis and my analytic that I produced. That is, it sounds like you're saying that's pretty critical to keeping them engaged.
Yeah, and I think one of the other nuances between, data science and other areas of data and analytics, it's kind of a role I played. It's getting the insights, being able to communicate the insights to the executives
Perfect.
and to customers, right? You can do the greatest work, but if you don't tell a good story or can communicate it,
It's worth nothing.
It's worth nothing, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I've kind of stepped in and really, we'll have formal readouts of everything. And I really, instill that in my team. Like, you've got to be able to just have a normal conversation because your audience, they don't want to get all techie or, they don't want the data speak. They just want to know, what does this mean and what's the value it provides?
Like, yes,
right?
it's a pretty rock curve,
Right.
but the client may
But, like,
not
what does
want
this
to see.
mean? Yeah.
Right. They
Yeah.
may not want to see it.
Yeah.
That used to bother me because I wanted to show them diagnostics. Like, I was so excited
Yeah.
about what a brick house I built, but then I realized I got to speak in a different language. So, yeah, that's a huge one right now. I'm so glad you brought that up, Ken, that the communicating the insights and how you can actually do something with it and what kind of value it adds and how you can take action on it is a third thing that's kind of nuancy with these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some other items? Are there other things, or are those the top three?
I think those are the main ones. I mean, I think the last one that we just hit on is I've noticed it. Typically that persona, that data scientist, isn't the best communicator in the organization, right? So I really try to push them to think outside the box. Like, if you're meeting with somebody who doesn't know what all this means, how would you explain it, right?
Right. Would you say that's the biggest challenge of development for you? Like, because it sounds like they're highly technical, so
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
But where do you see some of the bigger areas?
I think the softer skills, communications.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. I think the mindset, and again, I don't want to, put them in a box. Not all data scientists
No,
are
of
the
course,
same,
of
right?
course.
There's different flavors, but I think that's an area, really trying to connect them more with the business, right? I feel like in my role, I'm kind of bringing a lot of those ideas. I mean, we do a lot for banks, right? So thinking about what are the challenges banks have, right? They're trying to acquire new customers. They're trying to cross-sell products, upsell, expand their footprint, all these kind of ideas, and getting them thinking about that, our customers and what they need. And then, what are we privy to? What data do we have that we can bring transparency to our customers and value? I think that's really connecting the dots, right? I think that's an area that I feel like I step in to really help in that aspect because, and I let them get more technical and in the weeds with the data science piece, but picking the right business challenges to go after.
Gotcha. Yeah, that seems like that would be tough for somebody that's highly technical
Yep.
to figure out that kind of thing. If you had to prioritize a little bit on the skills that they have, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to give up, and what do you like? There's no way I can have a data scientist that doesn't have fill in the blank.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, there's always in the way I interview folks, and, we have a team, they meet with a number of people before we hire somebody, and everyone's kind of coming at it with a different perspective. Obviously, in a data scientist position, you want to make sure they've got the technical chops and,
Sure.
they're working with similar tools that we have. And, we frame a lot of different scenarios to really understand how they would approach something. Like, what's the thought process you would go through just to make sure their mind is kind of wired that way. I mean, that's how I like to think about data and analytics. It's very much, if you were tasked with this issue, I mean, how would you approach it? What kind of data would you try to pull into this analysis? And what's
Okay.
the thought process, right?
Yeah, and nobody talks about that. I mean, hardly anybody. And the schools have a hard time. And in my defense, because I've been in the education field for 20-something years, and I'm still affiliated with University of Georgia, it's tough because each professor gets a student for one semester. And you're so busy trying to teach them the technical side that it's difficult sometimes to have it sort of zoom out and say like, okay, well, client management, like that was just one project or one product you were building. What about, a series of those, and how would you manage that problem framing and what they're going through? So having that empathy, teaching them to have that empathy and that sort of thing. I personally would say curiosity.
Yeah.
That if I had to, there's no way I can have a data scientist be successful without some level of curiosity. You mentioned technical chops and being able to frame business problems.
Yeah, and I think
well.
the other thing, and it's kind of spanned across all of my roles, it's I want people who are passionate about the job, that want the job, and they come in and they're excited about it. If you're not excited about a job when you're in the interview, that's a huge red flag to me.
Right. If you haven't even gotten into it yet, and you're still not. Well, it must be very rewarding to oversee these kind of people, because they're technical, they're smart, they know how to extract all kinds of value. And it's interesting too, because one little change can go really big at TSYS, right? And so these are people that are somewhat powerful in the sense that the data is powerful, not in and of itself, but when you do something to it. What is it like leading these kinds of teams? And specifically, tell us about some of the rewards that you've experienced.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting because we're generating, value for the organization, right? I feel like we're, directly moving the business forward, which is very rewarding. Like you can see, and I think we've all early in our careers, you've been in jobs where, one of the challenges a lot of times is connecting your job to the bigger picture, right? And the companies, when they're given their annual report or, they're reporting their numbers quarterly or whatever, like, yeah, I feel like we're directly impacting the business, right? And it's a little easier in this space because it's, revenue and data monetization. So we can really quantify that, which is always great. But I think in some other areas, it's a little softer, right? It's a little more qualitative.
Right.
Like when I was in the governance space, it was very much you're enabling a lot of business activities, but you're not, generating revenue directly.
Right.
To
Whereas
your
with
role.
data science, it's like you're seeing an impact.
Yeah.
And whether that's a project that has to do with reducing safety incidences or increasing revenue or improving satisfaction or the customer experience or whatever, you're making an impact that has a bottom line. That must be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, and we're solving complicated problems, right? The work is interesting. I enjoy getting up and going to work in this role, right? And I think there's a lot of good in that, right? Really enjoying what you do and seeing value and kind of the deliverables that you and your team are providing.
Yep. Okay, so since we have 1 minute before I ask you your final question, please help us understand, Ken, from your perspective, if you had to give one hint to somebody about to do an interview for a data science position, what is that hint? Help them figure out what to focus on.
So it's kind of a loaded question a little bit, but I just say, really think about what are the must-haves you're trying to get out of the hire. If it's a specific, technical skill set that your team's lacking that you need to onboard, you're typically not going to find a unicorn that has everything, right? But, really honing in on for what we want this person to do. And the one thing I always come back to, it's fit, right? Within the team, cultural fit. I'm big on that. Especially in data science, you want to foster kind of a culture. So bringing in people who, are going to get along with the team. They're going to work well together and collaborate. That's really important to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you turn the mirror the other way, what would you say to a candidate that's about to interview?
Candidates about to interview.
Yeah.
I mean, be prepared, right? Know what the company does that you're interviewing with. And, come with some good questions. Don't come with just, do some pre-work, come with some solid questions. I always like to see that, if I say, oh, you have any questions for me? And if they say no, it's kind of, they just showed up today, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So be ready. Be inquisitive because
Mhm.
that inquisition, I mean, that's going to show your curiosity with data.
Yep.
And if you're really into it and it looks like it's something intriguing, try to at least show
Yeah, and
some of
I
that.
think anything you can share about your background that aligns with the opportunity
Right.
always helps, right? Like tell me something you did in your previous role that would prove that you can kind of solve problems here,
Oh, I love it. It's
right?
about problem solving.
Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, what final piece of advice would you give a leader who's trying to manage data scientists?
hmm I mean, I think the big thing is, you always want to stay current on the industry, and we've talked a lot. Going to industry events, new industry publications. There's tons of content out there to stay current, but building a network. As I've navigated my career, kind of taking the time to invest your time in events and networking and meeting people. There's just a ton of value there, and it's could be as you navigate your career, but even more so, if I'm looking for a data scientist, I now have a network I could lean on and say, Beverly, who do you know, who do you trust, kind of thing, and that
Hmm.
goes a long way versus just getting resumes, people who
Right.
apply. But it goes even further. Like if I hit a snag at work, like right now we're doing a large cloud migration, so just saying, hey, did you guys encounter this in your journey? How did you approach it? Could be like certain tools that could be recommended, but when it's coming from people you trust, and it takes time to establish that trust, right? You've got to invest your time to build those relationships, but they can be really beneficial as you move, navigate your career.
Love it. Love
Mhm,
it.
mhm.
So stay current. Now, by that, do you mean take a coding class as a leader? Or do you mean just like know
No,
the trends and where
know
the
the
movement?
trends. I mean,
Okay.
I'd say higher level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't think you need to go, take coding classes as an executive, but you need to. I always feel like to lead and manage, you need to understand the work
Right.
conceptually, what's happening, right? And you need to speak it to a certain extent,
Right.
but you don't have to be hands on the keyboard with it.
Gotcha.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
So try to stay current and make sure you network.
Yep.
Be that leader of data science, of data scientists that they can look up to,
Yep.
that they can admire,
Yeah,
they
because I
aspire
think
to be.
as a leader, I mean, you've gotta have that credibility and be able to cast that vision. And I think having past experiences and networks, and it just goes a long way for sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
hmm
Awesome.
hmm
Thank you so much
Yeah.
to Ken Viciana from TSYS for talking to us about leading data scientists.
Great. Thanks, Beverly.